Hello everybody, welcome to the Shire. I'm your custodian caretaker Scott, and this is Shire Shenanigans episode 2. So it's a little bit of a rainy day down here today, so we brought the shenanigans inside, and we ended up with a home run. We have my wonderful sister-in-law Lissa.
Hello.
And she comes to us from North Carolina, and she's visiting us, and it's kind of amazing who shows up at the Shire when you leave the gate unlocked. But it's all good. It's all good. We love it. No, so Lissa is an amazingly talented artist, and she has many, many talents, but artistry and creativity is really at the top of her game. But today she's going to talk to us. She is what we will refer to as a hummingbird whisperer. We love hummingbirds here at the Shire. They're so beautiful. They're so much fun. They're just really cool birds. If you don't like hummingbirds, I guess you have to think to yourself, what's wrong with me, right? But they're wonderful little critters. So she's a hummingbird whisperer, and she's going to show us some things about how we can appreciate them, take care of them, and maybe help them to thrive. So welcome, Lissa, to the Shire. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everybody.
So the first thing I would ask you is, why should we be concerned about hummingbirds?
They're just magical little creatures, and I think that they are, like everything, there's got to be an appreciation. When you're in a place like this, there's such an appreciation for the beauty of nature, and they are a part of it. They're so fragile, and they can use our help, particularly as things change and people use the pesticides and they prefer grass over many of the indigenous flowers and everything else, that it's like the hummingbirds need our help to keep them fed and keep them healthy. And I just feel like it's a responsibility that we do what we can, and being in a place like this is most definitely gives you that understanding of how big of a part that we can have in helping our other creatures.
So on a personal level, what made you interested in hummingbirds? I know you are, like Betsy and I, you are a lover of nature and appreciator of all things natural, but why hummingbirds? What got you interested in them particularly?
I kind of have just an appreciation for all living creatures, and I've done rescue for dogs and cats, and I think thankfully we had a mom that was very much a lover of nature and all things, that it kind of rubbed off on my sister Betsy and I, and I think the hummers just in particular, they're just so fascinating, that something that small, a young hummingbird is basically the weight of a marshmallow. And the fact that something like that can fly, and it's, it can be in North Carolina, it can be up here in Ohio, and then it migrates all the way back down south, and that something so small and so delicate is also so mighty is just kind of incredible. So it's just something that I love watching. I love seeing them every day, and love being a part of helping to take care of them by not only what I plant as far as flowers, but also in providing them some good, healthy nectar that I make from scratch, and we'll show you that too.
So they're kind of like, your opinion is kind of what I would share, like hummingbirds are almost like a little nature's miracle. They're the 100%. Fact that they can survive in a harsh environment and be so fragile and delicate, but yet they are pretty. They in their own way, they're hardy, and they're able to survive in some pretty difficult conditions.
Right.
But all right, so when we were talking before we started the video here, there's ways we can help them, right? There's ways we can make things for them potentially a little easier. So one of the things I think you just said was you make nectar. Now, nectar is in nature, what is nectar?
Nectar is just what they feed off of, and that's what gives them energy. So what's so interesting about hummingbirds is that they roughly drink about half of their body weight every day is what they need to get food-wise to sustain them. When you see them fly and you see how quickly their wings move, they need a lot of energy for that. And so typically what I've read, and this is all from the National Audubon Society, so for those of you who are true experts in hummingbirds, then feel free to tell me what your opinions are on it. But what I've read is basically the nectar that we need to give and what they get in nature. It's basically like 25% of sugar, I guess, is what they need in order to keep the energy up that they get from plants. And of course, things like any tubular shaped plant in nature that they tend to really, really love. And we have lantana down south, and I brought some up, and they've got it here too. And that is in many cases just an annual up in a zone like this, but they love it, and so do butterflies and the bees and everything like that. So part of my responsibility, I feel, when I plant things is, rather than just have a sheet of flat grass in my yard, what can I plant that's going to help sustain all of the other critters? And part of that, of course, is not using pesticides and things like that, but giving them the nectar in addition to planting flowers that they're going to be able to get nutrients from is such a huge benefit to them. And I just feel like that's what I need to do.
So you said you make your own nectar.
I sure do, and I think that's the best way to feed them. You can get things at the store, but it is so cheap to get just regular sugar. And I bring mine to a boil. Again, what I read on the Audubon Society says that helps with the fermentation, keeping it from going bad. So if you make a batch of hummingbird nectar, you can keep it in your refrigerator, what you don't use, and just be able to use it throughout a week. But you definitely want to change it frequently, and it's so simple and so inexpensive to make.
So could we make some right now?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's go make some nectar. This is going to be fun. Come join us.
Bring your spoons.
Okay, everybody, we're back. We are at the Shire Outdoor Kitchen. Eat your heart out, Bobby Flay. We are at the kitchen, and Lissa's going to show us exactly what goes into this nectar she makes. So I'm going to step aside and let her do her work.
So this is so unbelievably simple, and I think a lot of people overthink it. I think there was a theory for a long time that you wanted to add red dye to nectar, and you do not. It actually has been proven to be harmful to them. The additives are harmful. They are so small. They're such fragile little creatures that you just need to keep it simple. So basically, just know 4-to-1 ratio is what you're going to look at. So what I do for my feeder at home, I do 2 cups of water, half a cup of sugar. White granulated sugar is perfect. You do not use honey. Do not use anything artificial sweeteners. Do not use brown sugar. Plain white sugar is what you want to use. So what you're going to do, there's different theories on it. Some people believe that if you just put your water, add the sugar, stir it to where it dissolves, that you're fine. What I read, again, I saw it on the Audubon Society years ago, is that I actually boil mine, and it kind of makes sense that any of the impurities in water, especially if you're using tap water, well water, something that hasn't been purified, that there can be impurities in that again could be harmful to something as small as a hummingbird. So I always boil mine, and it's very simple. So you're going to start off with just plain white sugar. What did I say? There is going to be a quiz at the end of this. No brown sugar, no honey, no
brown sugar, no artificial sweeteners,
no dyes.
White sugar.
If you want to add, and they are attracted to red, they are attracted to the bright color, don't put it in your nectar. Have red on your feeder, and that's why you see so many of the hummingbird feeders that are made and they're red plastic. So that's what I would do. 4 parts water, 1 part sugar. So put all of mine together. So this is one where we've already added sugar. It looks just like the water. So all I did is we've got a pot of it, we've measured it out, 4-to-1, and then we added the sugar in, and now it's boiled. Once it's boiled, and I usually will allow mine to boil for maybe about 15-30 seconds. Again, that's helping to kill off some of the impurities and bacteria and things like that will allow you to store it, what you don't use, and you can store for future use. What I would recommend on that is, I would not, for me personally, I will use the nectar for at most a week. And you can start to see any surface that it's touched that is not completely clean, it will start to mold or mildew. And again, terrible for the hummingbirds. So I'll use it if I make extra. But ideally for me, I make new nectar every time. So I've got the ratio for my feeder at home, and I make enough to clean and fill it. So let's get into time. So what I would say is it's based on the temperature. They'll say anything you can use, or you can change the feeder once or twice a week is what they'll say. Again, there's a chart. You can go on the National Audubon Society, and it basically tells you on temperature. So if you are in, say, the 70-ish degrees temperatures, I think you can probably go 3 to 5 days. Where I live, there's many days that are in the 90s, high 90s. I change my nectar every day. I want to make sure that they're getting as fresh as possible to, again, keep them healthy. You've just got to remember what an important part of that nectar is to keeping them healthy and able to do what they do with their babies and everything else.
Okay, so now during our little talk here, we've had that boiling quite a bit longer than you normally use. So we're ready to actually let that cool and use it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
And so once it's boiled, and again, I'll do mine 15-30 seconds. Some people don't boil theirs at all. I think that that's going to be up to what you want to do. I just like to know that I use tap water, and so I'm hopefully boiling out. It's not going to take care of all, but it should take care of some of the impurities that are going to be hard on the hummingbird. So
very cool.
Yep, it's ready to go. We can let it cool. When you pour the nectar into your feeder, you want it to be room temperature. You can actually stun the hummingbirds if you have it in your fridge and you put it in and they drink cold. It can literally stun them. And so there are times that people have I've seen videos online where there's a hummingbird on the ground that it is literally stunned, and it's like when you have a brain freeze, I guess, is what I would equate that to. And so really room temperature is what you want. Can't, of course, have it too hot, so you just need to let it go to room temperature and then go ahead and fill your feeder.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to let this cool for just a few minutes, get it back to more ambient temperature, and we're going to move on to the next step. Stay with us. Okay, like I said, we're back. So now what we've got is we've got our nectar that Lissa made, and it's back to room temperature now. And now we also have our feeder, and we're going to fill our feeder, talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to close out with a little bit of a test to remember what we learned about hummingbirds today. So this is a hummingbird feeder, but what makes that a hummingbird feeder?
I think, and I'm going to just say, well, it's a hummingbird feeder. Of course, it's just very simple for the nectar to go in. It's got the little flower spout, so it mimics a flower, which is going to attract them. Also, the color red. I've seen hummingbird feeders that are not red. I've had them in the past. I've also had ones that are glass. I've had a myriad of different options. And I always love the cheap plastic kind. To me, work perfect. I don't think you have to get all fancy, but they do definitely seem to be more attracted to red. Now, I will say, and this was something that it's interesting, this is actually good that you see this. Most hummingbird feeders, the main thing on it is you want to make sure that you've got an easy way to keep it clean. This one is a proof of that there are ones out there that are not easy. So when this was purchased, everything looked good. This screws off. This screws off. So you can use, and there's any garden center is going to have the pipe cleaner that you can go in and clean this out. You need to scrub it. You can't just rinse it. You need to scrub because there will be bacteria residue that will be up inside. This is where, to me, the problem is on this feeder. This doesn't open. And so what happens is this is the reservoir that the nectar is going to go down into, and then the hummingbirds are going to feed out of here. This is going to get dirty, and it will mildew. It's just going to happen. It's sugar water. So there's no way to clean that. So this is one I would recommend not getting. The kind I get, and I will make sure to send, we'll have it on when this gets posted. I'm going to send a picture of the kind I like. 15, 16 bucks at the garden center that I go to. It's flat. It doesn't have these that pop out, so it's easier to clean. There's also little small pipe cleaners that you're going to use to clean down in there to get rid of any of the mildew or mold. So it's just a much simpler, easy, and that's what you want. When you've got to clean this as frequently as you really should, you want to make sure that you're able to clean it easily. So basically in something like this, what you're going to do, easy enough, is that you're going to fill and just pour this in like this, and hopefully not make a total mess. You don't need to fill it the whole way, and it just, unless you're in an area where you're going to get an abundance of hummingbirds. At my house, I get, if I'm lucky, 2 to 3 on the hummingbird feeder at a time. But what's interesting is it's literally like they take turns. So by the time I clean this, which is, if I'm doing it correctly, I'm cleaning it on a frequent basis, then I don't need it to be filled the whole way. You're just wasting the sugar. So this is how that's going to be. And so this has gone down into the reservoir, and so the hummingbirds are going to feed off of it, out of that. Simple enough. It's an easy design. These are cheap. You can buy these for a few bucks. But again, just make sure that you've got something that you can clean a lot. Bodie's got a lot to say, too.
1 second, please.
Bodie wants to be in on the action. But so yeah, I will show you a picture of the one that I would recommend. It's a fabulous little, and it's inexpensive. It's not anything beautiful, but the name of the game to me is ease of cleaning, because that's so important to do so that you're keeping your hummingbirds healthy. Another thing I would say too is, again, I think I mentioned this earlier, is you do not need to add any red dye. That's just additives that the hummingbirds don't need and actually can be harmful to them. So keep just plain water. It's easy enough. One step you don't have to deal with. They're going to be attracted to that red, and that will draw them to your feeder.
So one last question before we go over our points we want to remember. Where would you hang this?
I hang mine out on my porch that is maybe 10 feet away from my window. And so when I'm having coffee in the morning, I like looking out and watching them. And like I said, it's really, really, really fun to see ones that I've seen hummingbirds that I know have come back year after year to my yard. And that's just really cool to see. There's certain ones, and inevitably I name them Napoleon or Gertrude or whatever they are, Big Gray. And they come, and I know which ones are more aggressive, which ones are very subdued, which one, like there was one that there was a baby that came, and a little tiny thing, and it was so fun to watch that. And the other hummingbirds really left it alone. I think they knew it was a young one, and they left it alone to feed while they fought amongst themselves on who was going to get a chance at the hummingbird feeder next. Again, a good thing to do when you hang these, if you've got any, and you can look online, Google to your heart's content, ask someone at a garden center. You want to use this in conjunction with plants that you're going to have in your yard. It's really, they need so much nectar. They eat so frequently that they need both things. They need both what they get in nature plus what you can supplement for them. So you can, anywhere in your yard where you're going to enjoy them. I've got a friend, and we're going to add the video, that she's got one, and she will have 8 to 10 hummingbirds, and that's a little further away from her house. I'm not an expert, but it could be that they feel less threatened maybe being a little further away. One thing too I would say is, if you have outdoor cats, please don't put a hummingbird feeder up, because you're just asking for a sad end. You're asking
for nature to be nature.
For nature to be nature. That's
right.
Exactly right. So if you have outdoor cats, leave it to a neighbor, somebody else. You're better off not than having, it's basically, a feeding frenzy for an outdoor cat. So
good point. So that's excellent. Okay, so in closing here, I want to see if I passed the test. Okay, so I took notes.
Should I pass them?
Well, we'll see. Okay, so number 1, granulated sugar. No brown sugar, no Splenda, none of that stuff. White sugar. No honey.
Absolutely nothing artificial, because that is so harmful to them.
4-to-1 ratio.
Correct.
And in your case, you did 2 cups of water to
a half a cup
of sugar, and that makes it good. We made a bigger batch today, but that would be an adequate batch. No red dye.
Correct.
No red dye. Nothing artificial.
They do not need the additives. Everything I've read on it, it's harmful to them.
Okay. Change the water frequently, depending on temperature. Hot days, change it more than cold days.
Correct. If you are, and it's so interesting, because where we're at, we hit a good part of our summer is in the 90s and up. And so in Ohio here, there could be 80-degree days, but I would say Anything 90-ish and above, I change mine every day.
Okay.
If it's in the 80s, I change it every other day. I just want to make sure I'm providing, and that's what's nice about making a bigger batch. Easy enough for you to change it, get it cleaned. It literally is 5 minutes.
So that's the next one. Clean it frequently. Make sure you clean it. You're not just dumping it out and refilling it. You got to clean it.
Correct.
Got it.
As that ferments, and you can see it in the water, it starts to get cloudy. And that is absolutely the fermentation. That's bacteria that is growing in there, and that of course is harmful. We wouldn't want to drink it either, so I'm not going to give it to little tiny buddy.
And the last bullet point, placement is important, but you got to kind of play around with it, right? You have to kind of determine what works best for your yard.
And what do you want to get out of it? Are you doing it to feed as many hummingbirds as possible? In which case you can add and have multiple, you can put them on shepherd hooks. The one that I have is literally just out my window, so I can enjoy it when I'm having coffee. I get to watch them, and it's so interesting because they get used to you. And so they will come up, and if I've fed them and I've changed, if I stand right next to the feeder, one will come up and feed with me standing right there. That might happen to some people, some not, but they just have been so used to me being there, and they know that I'm there to help them, I think.
That's awesome. Hey, thank you, dear.
Absolutely.
You're the best. You're the best. Thank you for coming to the Shire and sharing that with us. So if everything works right, this is what you get to see. So I told you we'd do some pretty cool stuff at the Shire. Wasn't that cool? That was pretty neat. Thanks, Lissa, so much for coming down and joining us, sharing some of your expertise on hummingbirds. We're going to have you back with some of your other talents, so watch out. She's coming back, folks. And anyways, so until next time at the Shire, y'all have a great day. May your days be filled with shenanigans. Oh, and Bo, tell everybody bye.